The war between humans and the Valorian Empire had lasted 12 long years. Millions had died on both sides. Planets had burned. Families had been torn apart. But finally, after so much blood and pain, the leaders of both worlds had agreed to peace. Peace, however, came with a price. The Valorian Emperor had demanded a marriage alliance. One of his 7 daughters would marry a human of high standing. This union would bind the two species together and ensure that war would never come again. The humans had agreed, but they had one condition. They would choose which princess to marry, and they would send their greatest war hero to make that choice. That hero was Sergeant Major Marcus Cole. Marcus stood in the grand throne room of Valoria Prime, feeling completely out of place. The room was made of living crystal that hummed with soft music. The walls glowed with colors that shifted like the northern lights of Earth. Everything was beautiful in a way that made him uncomfortable. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. He belonged in muddy trenches and burning battlefields, not in palaces made of singing glass. Around him stood hundreds of Valorian nobles. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed from within. Their bioluminescence made them look like living artwork. Blues and purples and greens pulsed beneath their translucent skin, creating patterns that changed with their moods. To human eyes, they were stunning. To each other, their glow was everything. It showed health, status, and beauty. A Valorian who glowed brightly was considered blessed. One who glowed dimly was considered cursed. The nobles whispered to each other as they stared at Marcus. He knew what they were thinking. To them, he was ugly. Humans did not glow. Their skin was dull and opaque, like mud or stone. The Valorians had called humans the Dark Ones during the war. Some had called them worse things. Marcus did not care what they thought of him. He had not come here to make friends. The Emperor sat upon a throne of solid light. He was ancient by Valorian standards, nearly 400 years old, but he still glowed with power. His eyes were cold as he looked down at the human soldier. "Bring forth my daughters," the Emperor commanded. 7 women entered the throne room. 6 of them walked with their heads held high, their skin blazing with brilliant colors. They moved like dancers, graceful and confident. Each one was more beautiful than the last, at least by Valorian standards. They glowed so brightly that Marcus had to squint to look at them. But it was the 7th princess who caught his attention. She walked behind her sisters. Her head bowed, her shoulders hunched. She moved like someone who wanted to disappear. Where her sisters blazed with light, her skin was dull. It was a grayish-green color, mottled with dark patches. She was shorter than her sisters, and her body was stockier. Her features were broader, less delicate. Marcus had done his research before coming here. He knew about Princess Thyra. She had been sick as a child. The illness had damaged her bioluminescence permanently. In a society that worshipped light, she had become a living shame. Her own family barely acknowledged her existence. She had spent her life in the shadows, ignored and mocked by everyone around her. The 6 glowing princesses lined up before Marcus. They smiled at him, but their smiles did not reach their eyes. He could see the disgust hiding behind their beauty. To them, he was nothing but a useful animal. A beast they might have to tolerate for the sake of peace. Thyra stood apart from her sisters. She did not smile. She did not even look up. She simply waited, as if she already knew that she would not be chosen. She never was. The Emperor's voice boomed through the chamber. "Human, these are my daughters. Each one is a jewel of the Empire. Each one brings wealth, power, and ancient bloodlines. Choose wisely, for your choice will shape the future of both our peoples." Marcus began to walk. He moved slowly past the glowing princesses, looking at each one carefully. The first princess smiled sweetly at him, but her eyes were calculating. The second fluttered her long lashes, but her light pulsed with impatience. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th were no different. Beautiful on the outside, empty on the inside. Then he stopped in front of Thyra. She finally looked up. Her eyes were amber, deep and warm, the only part of her that held any light. Those eyes widened with confusion, as Marcus stood before her. "This one," Marcus said clearly. "I choose this one." The throne room exploded with noise. Nobles gasped and whispered. Some laughed in disbelief. Thyra's sister stared at Marcus like he had lost his mind. The Emperor's face twisted with a mixture of shock and anger. "You cannot be serious," the Emperor said slowly. "You would choose ... her, when you could have any of my other daughters?" Marcus did not look away from Thyra. "I am completely serious. My choice is made." The Emperor's hands gripped his throne so tightly that cracks appeared in the solid light. But the treaty was clear. The human's choice was final. There was nothing he could do. "So be it," the Emperor declared. His voice was like ice. "The Dark One goes with the beast. Perhaps they deserve each other." The nobles laughed at the Emperor's cruel joke. Thyra's sisters smirked with relief. They had escaped having to marry the ugly human. The Dark Princess could have him. Guards escorted Marcus and Thyra from the throne room. The laughter followed them all the way to the doors. Only when those doors closed behind them did the sound finally fade. They walked in silence through crystal corridors. Thyra kept her head down, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller than ever, as if the mockery had physically shrunk her. Finally she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" Marcus looked down at her. "Why what? Why did you choose me? You could have had any of them. They are beautiful. I am ... this." She gestured at herself with disgust. "You have made yourself a fool in front of the entire empire. You have insulted my father. You have gained nothing but a broken princess that nobody wants." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made Thyra stop walking. "I saw the way they looked at you in there. Your sisters, your father, everyone. I know that look very well. I have worn it myself." Thyra finally looked up at him. "What do you mean?" "I was not always a war hero," Marcus said. "I was the smallest boy in my village, the weakest, the one everyone laughed at, the one everyone said would never amount to anything. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be unwanted, to be treated like a mistake that should have never happened." Thyra's amber eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. "Your sisters looked at me with disgust," Marcus continued. "They saw a beast, a useful tool at best. But when I looked at you, do you know what I saw?" Thyra shook her head. "I saw someone looking back at me, not at my scars or my dull skin. At me. You were the only one in that room who saw a person standing there. That is worth more than all the light in the universe." Thyra did not say anything. She could not. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her. Really seen her, and she did not know how to feel about that. The diplomatic ship. Olive Branch was designed to carry important people between stars. It had elegant rooms, fine food, and a crew trained to serve royalty. For 3 weeks, the ship would be Marcus and Thyra's home as they traveled to Earth. Thyra spent the first 3 days hiding in their shared quarters. The room was large and comfortable. There were 2 separate sleeping areas, a sitting room with soft furniture, and a wide window that showed the stars streaking past. It was nicer than any room Thyra had ever been given on Valoria Prime, but she could not enjoy it. She was too busy waiting for the other shoe to drop. She knew how this worked. People did not show kindness to her without wanting something. Her sisters had learned early that being nice to Thyra made them look bad, so they had stopped. The servants had learned that helping her too much would anger the Emperor, so they did only what they were required to do. Even the few boys who had shown interest in her as a young woman had quickly disappeared when they realized that courting her would hurt. Their social standing, Marcus would be no different. Sooner or later, he would show his true colors. He would ignore her, or use her, or simply tolerate her presence while wishing he had chosen someone else. She just had to wait. But the days passed. Marcus did none of those things. He knocked on her door each morning and asked if she wanted to have breakfast together. When she said no, he simply said okay and left food outside her door. He did not push. He did not demand. He just asked again the next day. On the 4th day, curiosity got the better of her. She found Marcus in the ship's observation deck. a large room with windows that curved around to show the stars on all sides. He was sitting in a comfortable chair, reading something on a datapad. When he saw her enter, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "You came out," he said. "I was starting to worry that you did not like my company." Thyra sat down in a chair far away from his. "I do not understand you." "What do you mean?" "I have been hiding for days. I have been rude. I have given you no reason to keep being nice to me. But you keep trying. Why?" Marcus put down his datapad. "Because I meant what I said. I did not choose you to have a servant or a trophy. I chose you because I wanted a partner, someone I could talk to, someone who might understand me the way I think I understand her. You do not know me." "No," Marcus agreed. "I do not, but I would like to. If you let me." Thyra did not know what to say. No one had ever wanted to know her before. She was the dark princess, the embarrassment, the mistake. What was there to know? But something in Marcus's eyes made her want to try. "What do you want to know?" she asked quietly. Marcus smiled again. "Everything. But let us start with something simple. What do you like to do?" The question caught her off guard. She had been asked many things in her life. What her bloodline was, what her dowry would be, what political advantages she could offer. But no one had ever asked what she liked to do. "I study plants," she said slowly. "Xenobotany. I like learning about how plants from different worlds grow and adapt. I've spent most of my life in the palace gardens, since no one wanted me at formal events." Marcus leaned forward with interest. "That sounds fascinating. Tell me more." So she did. She told him about the singing flowers of Valoria Prime that bloomed only in total darkness. She told him about the walking trees of the jungle moon that migrated with the seasons. She told him about her dream of one day cataloging every plant in the known galaxy. Marcus listened to every word. He asked questions. He remembered details. He treated her words like they mattered. When she finally stopped talking, Thyra realized that 2 hours had passed. She had never talked to anyone for that long before. Her face felt strange, and she realized with shock that she was smiling. "I am sorry," she said quickly. "I talk too much." "You must be bored." "Not even a little," Marcus said. "I could listen to you talk about plants all day. Your face lights up when you talk about things you love." Thyra felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That is not possible. My face does not light up. It cannot." Marcus shook his head. "I did not mean your bioluminescence. I meant your expression. The way your eyes shine. The way you move your hands when you get excited. Beauty is not just about glowing, Thyra. There are many kinds of light." Over the next week, Thyra found herself spending more and more time with Marcus. They had breakfast together. They walked through the ship. They sat in the observation deck and watched the stars. She learned that he liked to read old Earth poetry and that he had a terrible singing voice, but loved to sing anyway. She learned that he had nightmares about the war and that he was terrified of failing as a diplomat. After spending his whole life as a soldier, he was not perfect. He was scarred, inside and out, but he was kind and honest and real. One evening, as they sat watching a nebula paint the stars with color, Thyra asked the question that had been burning inside her. "On Valoria, you saw me for the first time. You knew nothing about me. Why did you really choose me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "When I looked at your sisters, I saw people who had never struggled, never doubted, never been told they were worthless. They glowed because they had never known darkness. But you glowed differently. I do not glow at all." "Yes, you do." "Not with bioluminescence. With something deeper, with the kind of strength that only comes from surviving. I have seen that glow in soldiers who came back from impossible battles, in mothers who protected their children against all odds, in people who kept going when everything told them to give up. That glow is rare, Thyra, and it is beautiful." Thyra felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time, before she could respond. An alarm shattered the moment. Red lights flashed. A voice announced over the speakers that the ship had received a distress signal. A civilian transport had been attacked by raiders. There were survivors, but they would not last long. Marcus was on his feet immediately. I have to help. The captain will say no, Thyra said. This is a diplomatic mission. He will not risk the treaty for strangers. Then I will convince him. But when they reached the bridge, the Valorian captain said exactly what Thyra had predicted. The risk was too great. They would not respond to the signal. Thyra watched Marcus argue. She watched him beg. She watched the captain refuse again and again. Then something inside her snapped. Captain, she said, and her voice carried an authority that surprised even herself. I am Princess Thyra of the Valorian Empire. I order you to respond to that distress signal. The captain stared at her. Your Highness, with respect, you have no authority here. Your father, my father, is not here. And I will not stand by while innocent people die because responding might be inconvenient. Change course. Now. The captain hesitated. Then, slowly, he gave the order. As the ship changed direction, Marcus looked at Thyra with something new in his eyes. Pride. There she is, he said softly. There is the woman I chose. Thyra did not know who that woman was yet, but for the first time in her life, she wanted to find out. The civilian transport was called the Morning Star. When the olive branch found it, the ship was drifting in space like a wounded animal. Scorch marks covered its hull. Several sections had been torn open by weapons fire. Emergency lights blinked weakly through the cracks. The raiders who had attacked it were called the Karathi. They were a brutal species from the outer regions of the galaxy. They did not care about treaties or politics. They only cared about taking what they wanted, slaves, cargo, ships, whatever. They could sell to the highest bidder. 3 Karathi ships still circled the Morning Star like sharks waiting for their prey to stop. Struggling Captain Veros of the Olive Branch was not happy about the situation. His ship was built for diplomacy, not combat. It had some weapons, but nothing compared to what the raiders had. If the Karathi decided to attack, the Olive Branch would not last long. We should leave, the captain said. We have answered the distress call. We have seen the situation. There is nothing we can do. Marcus Cole stood at the bridge viewport, staring at the wounded ship. There are still life signs on that transport, 200 people at least. If we leave, the Karathi will take them. And if we stay, they may take us as well. I am responsible for this ship and everyone on it, including you and the princess. Then let me go alone, Marcus said. Give me a shuttle and a weapon. I will board the transport and hold off the raiders until the survivors can escape. The captain looked at him like he was insane. That is suicide. I have survived worse odds. It was true. During the war, Marcus had held a space station called Proxima against 2,000 Valorian soldiers with only 50 humans under his command. They had held for 3 days until reinforcements arrived. Marcus had been the last man standing. That battle had made him a legend. It had also covered his body with scars that would never fully heal. Before the captain could argue, another voice cut through the tension. I am going with him. Everyone turned to look at Princess Thyra. She stood near the door of the bridge, her arms crossed, her amber eyes burning with determination. Absolutely not, Captain, Veros said immediately. Your Highness, you are too valuable. If something happened to you, if something happens to me, my father will probably throw a celebration, Thyra said flatly. I am the daughter he wishes had never been born. But that does not matter right now. What matters is that there are innocent people dying while we stand here arguing. I am going. Marcus stepped toward her. Thyra, this is not a game. The Karathi are monsters. They will not care that you are a princess. I know. Thyra met his eyes without flinching. I have had combat training since I was 8 years old. My father believed it was the only way I would ever be useful to anyone. He was probably right. This is my chance to prove it. There was no fear in her voice, no hesitation. For the first time, Marcus saw the steel that had been hiding beneath her quiet surface. She had spent her whole life being told she was worthless. Now she had found something worth fighting for. All right, he said. Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. And if things go bad, you run. Promise me. Aura did not promise. She just picked up a plasma rifle from the weapons rack and checked its charge. They took a small shuttle to the Morning Star. The Karathi ships noticed them but did not attack. They probably thought the small craft was not worth their attention. That mistake would cost them. The interior of the transport was a nightmare. Emergency lighting painted everything in red. Bodies lay in the corridors. The survivors had barricaded themselves in the cargo bay at the center of the ship. Karathi raiders were trying to break through the doors. Marcus and Thyra attacked from behind. The Karathi were caught completely by surprise. They were used to helpless victims, not armed warriors. Marcus moved through them like a storm, his military training turning him into a weapon of pure destruction. Every shot found its target. Every movement was precise and deadly, but Thyra surprised everyone, including herself. Her father had given her the best combat instructors on Valoria Prime, not out of love, but out of a desperate hope that she might someday be useful as a bodyguard or soldier, since she would never be useful as a bride. Those instructors had been brutal. They had pushed her harder than they pushed her sisters because they did not care if the dark princess got hurt. Now that training paid off. Thyra fought with cold precision. Where Marcus was a storm, she was ice. She did not waste a single shot. She did not panic. She moved through the battle like she had been doing it her whole life. Together they cleared corridor after corridor. The Karathi fell before them. Then everything went wrong. They were almost to the cargo bay. When more raiders appeared from a side passage, Marcus turned to face them, but he did not see the Karathi warrior coming from his blind side. The creature's blade was long and curved, designed for causing maximum pain. It caught Marcus across the chest. He went down hard. Blood spread across his armor, soaking through the gaps in the protective plating. The wound was deep. Too deep, Thyra screamed. The sound that came from her throat was not human and not Valorian. It was something older, something primal, something that had been sleeping inside her for her entire life, waiting for this moment to wake up, and then she began to glow. It started in her chest, right where her heart was beating. A light appeared there, soft at first, then brighter. It was not the blue or purple or green that Valorians normally produced. This light was gold. Pure, burning gold, like liquid fire running through her veins. The light spread outward. It filled her arms, her legs, her face. It poured out of her skin and filled the corridor with blazing radiance. The Karathi raiders stumbled backward, their eyes wide with terror. They knew this light. Every species in the galaxy knew this light, even if only from legends. The golden light of the first Empress. The raiders ran. They fled like animals running from a forest fire. They did not look back. They did not stop until they reached their ships and retreated into the darkness of space. But Thera did not notice them leave. She was already on her knees beside Marcus, pressing her glowing hands against his wound. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. Do not do this. Do not leave me. You are the first person who ever saw me. The first person who ever cared. You cannot die. I will not let you." The golden light pulsed from her hands into his body. It was not something she was doing consciously. It was instinct. It was need. It was love expressing itself in the only way it could. Marcus gasped. His eyes flew open. He felt warmth spreading through his chest, not just healing his wound, but reaching deeper, touching something in his soul that he had thought was dead. The pain faded. The bleeding stopped. The torn flesh began to knit itself back together when the Valorian medics from the olive branch finally reached them. They froze in the doorway. They stared at Thyra with expressions of pure shock. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "The golden light. It has not appeared in 1,000 generations." "What is happening to me?" Thyra demanded. She was still glowing, still pressing her hands against Marcus, even though he was clearly going to survive. "What is this?" The oldest medic, a woman who had served the imperial family for 200 years, slowly lowered herself to her knees. "Your radiance," she said, her voice trembling with awe. "You carry the light of the first Empress." she who founded our empire 10,000 years ago. The prophecy said this light would only appear again in one who had known true suffering and true love, one who had been broken by darkness and healed by another. Thyra looked down at Marcus. He was staring up at her with wonder in his eyes. "You knew," she breathed. "Somehow you knew." Marcus shook his head slowly. He reached up and touched her glowing cheek with trembling fingers. "I did not know anything about prophecies or ancient light," he said. "I just saw a woman that everyone had given up on, and I recognized her, because I was her once. Someone saw me when I was nothing. Someone believed in me when I had no reason to believe in myself. I wanted to do the same for you." Tears streamed down Thyra's face, leaving trails of light on her golden skin. "You did," she said. "You did so much more than that." The survivors of the Morning Star gathered around them. 200 people who would have been taken by raiders, not for a human soldier and a princess that nobody wanted, but Thyra barely noticed them. She was looking at Marcus, and he was looking at her, and in that moment, nothing else in the universe mattered. The Dark Princess had found her light, and she had found it not in herself, but in the heart of a man who had seen her when no one else would. News traveled fast in the galaxy. By the time the Olive Branch changed course and headed back to Valoria Prime, every inhabited world had heard the story. The Dark Princess had manifested the golden light, the ancient power of the first. Empress had returned after 1,000 generations of silence. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On Valoria Prime, millions of people gathered in the streets. Some celebrated. Others prayed. The temples of the first Empress, which had stood empty for centuries, suddenly overflowed with worshippers. Priests dusted off ancient texts and searched for guidance on how to treat a living bearer of the golden light. The Emperor watched all of this from his throne, and he felt something he had not felt in a very long time: fear. His seventh daughter, the embarrassment, the mistake, the one he had hidden away and ignored for 23 years. She had become the most important person in the Empire overnight, and she had done it while standing beside a human. When the Olive Branch finally landed at the Imperial Palace, the crowd that had gathered was larger than any in recorded history. People pushed against the barriers, desperate to catch a glimpse of Princess Thyra. They chanted her name. They wept with joy. They reached out their hands as if touching her light might heal their own darkness. Thyra walked down the landing ramp with Marcus at her side. Her golden glow had faded since the battle, but it still pulsed softly beneath her skin. She was no longer the same woman who had left this planet with her head bowed and her shoulders hunched. She walked tall now. She walked like someone who finally knew her own worth. The throne room was packed with nobles who had never given her a second glance. Now they fell to their knees as she passed. They called her Your Radiance and Blessed One and Light of the Empire. The same people who had laughed at her at the ceremony of choosing now prostrated themselves at her feet. Thyra felt nothing but emptiness as she looked at them. Their worship meant nothing. They had not changed. They were simply afraid of her power. Her sisters stood near the throne. They had not knelt. Their faces were masks of forced politeness, but their eyes burned with jealousy and resentment. For their entire lives, they had been told they were the beautiful ones, the worthy ones, the ones who mattered. Now their ugly sister had surpassed them all, and they could not stand it. The Emperor sat on his throne of light. His face was carefully neutral, but Thyra could see the calculation behind his eyes. He was already figuring out how to use her new power for his own benefit. "Daughter," he said, and the word sounded strange coming from his lips. He had not called her daughter in years. "You have brought great honor to our empire. The golden light has returned, and you are its vessel. This is a blessing beyond measure." Thyra did not bow. "Father," the Emperor's eye twitched slightly at her lack of proper respect, but he could not reprimand her in front of so many witnesses. Not when she glowed with the light of their god Press. "You must discuss your future," he continued. "The golden light changes everything. Your marriage to this human, while ... admirable ... may no longer be appropriate. There are princes from a dozen worlds who would give anything to have you as a wife. alliances that could benefit our empire for generations. There it was, the truth beneath the pretty words. Her father did not care about her. He cared about what she could do for him. He wanted to annul her marriage to Marcus and sell her to the highest bidder. Thyra felt Marcus tense beside her. She reached out and took his hand. "Father," she said, and her voice carried through the silent throne room. "I present my husband, Marcus Cole of Earth, the man who saw my worth when no one else would. The man who stood beside me in battle, the man whose love woke the light inside me." The Emperor's false smile tightened. "Daughter, surely now you understand that this human is beneath you. The marriage can be annulled. With your manifestation, every prince in the galaxy know." The single word hit the throne room like a thunderclap. Thyra's golden light pulsed brighter, and several nobles scrambled backward in fear. "For 23 years I was invisible in this palace," Thyra continued. "Worse than invisible? I was a shame, a burden, a mistake to be hidden away. You could not even look at me without disgust in your eyes. Now you want to take credit for what I have become? You want to use me like a tool?" She stepped forward, and even the Emperor shrank back slightly on his throne. "Marcus did not choose me because of prophecy or power. He chose me when I had nothing. When I was nothing in the eyes of everyone in this room, that is worth more than every crown in the universe." Silence filled the throne room. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. Then Princess Valara, the eldest daughter, stepped forward. She was the most beautiful of Thyra's sisters, and she had spent her entire life preparing to inherit the throne. Now that future was slipping away, and she could not accept it. "This is ridiculous," Valara said. Her voice dripped with contempt. "The golden light means nothing if its vessel has no breeding. You are still the Dark One, Thyra, a freak who got lucky. Father, you cannot let her speak to you this way." Thyra turned to face her sister. "I've spent my whole life listening to you. Tell me what I am. I am done now. Say what you want. It cannot hurt me anymore." Valara's perfect face twisted with rage. But before she could respond, the Emperor raised his hand. "Enough," he said. "Princess Thyra, if you wish to remain married to the human, that is your choice. The ancient laws are clear. The bearer of the golden light answers to no one." His words were accepting, but his tone promised that this was not over. Thyra knew her father well enough to understand that he would find another way to control her. He always did. The crowd was dismissed. The nobles filed out, whispering among themselves. Thyra and Marcus were escorted to a luxurious suite of rooms. Guards were posted at every entrance, supposedly for their protection. "They're watching us," Marcus said as soon as they were alone. "Your father is not going to let this go. I know." Thyra walked to the window and looked out at the city. Millions of lights twinkled in the darkness, each one a Valorian life glowing with hope. He will try to separate us, or control us, or both. Then we leave. Tonight, if we have to. Thyra turned to look at him. "Leave? This is my home. My world, is it?" Marcus asked gently. "What happiness has this world ever given you? What love has this palace ever shown you? Thyra, you have spent your whole life being punished for something you could not control. You do not owe these people anything," she wanted to argue. She wanted to say that things would be different now, but she knew he was right. The nobles would never truly accept her. Her sisters would never stop resenting her. Her father would never see her as anything but a tool. Before she could respond, a sound made them both freeze. Glass breaking. Shadows moved in the darkness. Figures in black clothing climbed through the windows. They moved with deadly grace, their hands holding weapons that gleamed in the dim light. Assassins, Marcus reacted instantly. He grabbed Thyra and threw her behind a heavy couch, putting his body between her and the attackers. Then he was fighting, using every skill he had learned in a lifetime of war. The assassins were good, but Marcus was better. He killed 3 of them before the palace guards finally burst through the doors. The remaining assassins fled through the broken windows, disappearing into the night. But not before Marcus caught a glimpse of something on one of their wrists. A sigil. A personal mark that he had seen in the throne room. The mark of Princess Valara. She tried to kill us, Marcus said quietly as guards swarmed around them. Your own sister. Thyra was not surprised. She was not even angry. She was just tired. So very tired of fighting against people who were supposed to love her. We need to leave, she said. Tonight? Right now. Before she tries again? Are you sure? Once we go, there may be no coming back. Thyra looked around at the luxurious room, at the palace that had been her prison for 23 years, at the world that had never wanted her. Then she looked at Marcus, at his scarred face and kind eyes, at the man who had crossed the galaxy to find her. I am sure, she said. Take me home, Marcus. Take me to Earth. He took her hand. Then let us go. They left Valoria Prime that night, stealing away on a small ship, while the palace burned with chaos behind them. The Dark Princess and the Human Soldier. Running toward a future that no one could have predicted. Running toward home Earth was nothing like Valoria Prime. The first thing Thyra noticed was the sky. It was blue during the day, not purple like her homeworld. At night, it turned black and filled with stars that did not sing. The planet had no crystal palaces, no glowing forests, no cities made of light. Everything was solid and heavy and real. She loved it immediately. Marcus brought her to a small Lamanta house in a place called Montana. It sat at the base of a mountain range, surrounded by fields of golden grass that swayed in the wind. There were no servants, no guards, no nobles watching her every move. There was just the two of them, alone in a world that did not care what color she glowed. It is not much, Marcus said as he showed her around. I bought it before the war, when I thought I would come back and live a quiet life. That did not happen, obviously. But now we can make it happen together, Thyra finished. For the first few weeks, she simply existed. She woke up without fear. She ate when she was hungry, not when she was told. She walked outside and felt the sun on her skin without worrying about who might see her and laugh. She read books, planted a garden, and learned how to cook human food badly enough to make. Marcus laughed. It was the most peaceful time of her entire life. But news of her arrival had spread. Humans were curious about the alien princess who had married their war hero. News reporters came to interview her. Scientists wanted to study her golden light. Politicians wanted her to speak at events. At first, Thyra was terrified. She expected mockery, disgust, the same treatment she had received her whole life. What she found instead amazed. Her humans could not see bioluminescence without special equipment. To them, Thyra just looked different, interesting, unique. When she smiled, they did not see her dull skin or mottled patches. They saw warmth. When she spoke, they did not hear a broken princess. They heard someone wise and kind. You were beautiful, a little girl told her at a public event. Your eyes look like honey, Thyra almost cried. No one on Valoria had ever called her beautiful. As months passed, she found her place on this strange new world. Her knowledge of xenobotany turned out to be incredibly valuable. Human scientists had been struggling to grow crops on terraformed planets for decades. Thyra's expertise helped them solve problems that had seemed impossible. She developed new techniques, discovered useful alien plants, and published papers that became required reading at universities across Earth. She was not just tolerated, she was celebrated. Not for her light or her bloodline, but for her mind. Marcus was proud of her every single day. I told you, he said one evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. I told you there were many kinds of light. Thyra leaned her head against his shoulder. You were right. About everything. But their peace could not last forever. Princess Valara had been caught and imprisoned for the assassination attempt. But her supporters remained powerful. They sent message after message to Thyra, demanding that she return to Valoria Prime and claim her rightful place as heir. The golden light belonged to the Empire, they said. She had a duty to her people. The Valorian Emperor himself sent a formal demand. Thyra was to return immediately. If she refused, the treaty between humans and Valorians would be reconsidered. It was blackmail. Pure and simple. Marcus was furious. They cannot do this. You are not their property. I know, Thyra said calmly, but they will not stop until I answer them. So what do we do? Thyra smiled. It was a different smile than the one she had worn when they first met. This one was confident, strong. It belonged to a woman who finally knew who she was. We answer them, she said, but not the way they expect. She requested a broadcast that would reach both human and Valorian space. Every news network in the galaxy agreed to carry it. This was the biggest story of the century. Everyone wanted to see what the Golden Princess would do. Thyra stood before the cameras with Marcus at her side. Her golden light pulsed softly, visible even through the broadcast equipment. Billions of people watched as she began to speak. For 1,000 generations, my people have measured worth by the brightness of our skin. We have lifted up the beautiful and thrown away the different. We have built an empire on the belief that appearance equals value, and look what it has brought us. War, corruption, a society so obsessed with surface that it cannot see depth. She paused, letting her words sink in. I spent 23 years believing I was worthless because I could not glow like my sisters. I spent 23 years being told that I was a mistake, a burden, a shame, and then a human soldier looked at me and saw something else. He saw strength. He saw wisdom. He saw a person worth knowing. Her light grew brighter. I found my light not in a throne room, but in a human heart. Not through power, but through love. If that is what the prophecy truly meant, then let it begin a new chapter. Not a chapter of Valorian dominance or human submission, a chapter of genuine understanding between our peoples. She reached out and took Marcus's hand. I am not returning to Valoria Prime to claim a crown. I am staying on Earth to build a bridge, a place where humans and Valorians can learn together, grow together, see each other clearly for the first time. And I'm asking both our peoples to cross that bridge with me. The broadcast ended. For a moment, there was silence across the galaxy. Then the responses began pouring in. Some Valorians were angry. They called her a traitor. But many more were inspired. Young Valorians who had felt different their whole lives saw hope in her words. They began questioning the beliefs they had been taught. They began wondering if maybe there was more to life than glowing brightly. Humans, meanwhile, embraced Thyra's vision completely. Within a year, the first human Valorian academy was built near Marcus and Thyra's home in Montana. Children from both species came to learn together. They studied science and art and history. They played together. They became friends. And slowly, generation by generation, both species began to change. 20 years later, Thyra stood at the window of the academy she had helped build. Her hair had threads of gray now, and lines had appeared around her amber eyes. But her light still glowed as warmly as ever. Marcus came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. He was older too, his scars more visible, his movements slower. But his eyes were still kind. His heart was still true. The graduation ceremony starts in an hour, he said. Our son is giving the opening speech. Thyra smiled. They had 3 children. Each one carried their mother's golden light and their father's stubborn heart. Each one had been raised to believe that beauty was not what you were born with, but what you chose to become. Do you ever regret it? She asked. It was a question she still asks sometimes, even after all these years. Choosing me in that throne room? Marcus turned her around to face him. He looked at her the same way he had looked at her that first day, like she was the most precious thing in the universe. I made the only choice that mattered, he said. The only choice I would ever make again? They walked together toward the graduation ceremony. Around them, human and Valorian students laughed and talked like the divisions between their species had never existed. The future that Thyra had dreamed of was becoming real, one small moment at a time. She had been called ugly her whole life. She had been called dark and broken and worthless. She had been thrown away by everyone who should have loved her, but one human soldier had looked at her and seen something different. He had seen her, and that had changed everything. The dark princess and the human beast, the ugliest and the scarred. Together, they had built something beautiful. Together. It found their light, and that light would shine for generations to come.